Your Honor, this woman is clearly lying about her military service. No black woman has ever been a Navy SEAL sniper. The prosecutor's voice dripped with condescension as he gestured dismissively at the defendant. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Camera phones appeared despite the bailiff's warnings. What happened next would go viral within hours. But let me take you back to how Lieutenant Commander Jasmine Torres found herself in handcuffs in a federal courthouse, accused of stolen valor, when in reality she held more classified commendations than anyone in that room could imagine. 8 hours earlier, Jasmine had walked into the courthouse wearing civilian clothes, simple jeans, a plain black t-shirt. She'd learned long ago that blending in kept her safe from questions she couldn't answer. The metal detector beeped. Standard procedure. The security guard, Officer Bradley Mitchell, barely glanced up from his newspaper. "Arms out," he muttered. Jasmine complied. The wand passed over her body. Another beep near her ankle. "What's that?" Mitchell's tone sharpened. "Medical pin from an old injury," Jasmine replied calmly. "I have documentation." Mitchell's eyes narrowed. He was the type who enjoyed his small kingdom of authority. "You military?" he asked, noticing her posture. "Former," she said simply. "What branch?" His voice carried that particular edge of someone looking for a confrontation. "Navy." Mitchell snorted. "Navy? You?" His eyes traveled over her deliberately. "What did you do? Work in the kitchen?" Jasmine's jaw tightened imperceptibly. 23 confirmed kills, 4 bronze stars, a silver star, 3 purple hearts, classified operations in 7 countries, but she said nothing. "I served," she repeated quietly. Mitchell laughed. Actually laughed. "Sure you did, sweetheart. Step aside for additional screening." The line behind her grew. People stared, whispered. Someone started recording. "Is there a problem?" Jasmine asked. "The problem," Mitchell said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "is people like you claiming military service for benefits. Stolen valor is a crime." Jasmine's eyes went cold. "I'm not claiming anything. I served 6 tours." Mitchell called over his supervisor, Sergeant Dennis Hayes, a man who'd washed out of basic training 15 years ago, but still acted like he'd stormed Normandy. "She says she's military," Mitchell reported with a smirk. Hayes looked Jasmine up and down. "Military? Her? What unit?" he asked mockingly. Jasmine hesitated. Most of her service record was classified. "Naval Special Warfare," she said carefully. Both men burst out laughing. Hayes actually slapped his knee. "Naval Special Warfare? You mean the SEALS?" More laughter. "Lady, impersonating a SEAL is a federal offense." The crowd grew larger. More phones came out. Jasmine could have shown them her military ID, the one that would have ended this immediately, but it was in her truck. She'd grabbed the wrong wallet. A simple mistake that would cost her the next 8 hours of her life. "I need to report for jury duty," Jasmine said evenly. "I'm going to be late." Hayes stepped closer. Too close. "You're not going anywhere until we verify your story. And when we prove you're lying, you're getting arrested." They led her to a small security office, made her sit in a metal chair while they investigated. Mitchell typed slowly on an ancient computer. "What's your full name?" he demanded. "Jasmine Marie Torres." "Rank?" "Lieutenant Commander." Another snort of disbelief. "Service number?" She recited it. Mitchell typed it into the public database. Nothing came up. Of course, nothing came up. Her real records were behind 7 layers of classification. "Look at that," Hayes announced triumphantly. "No record. You're a liar." "My records are classified," Jasmine explained patiently. "I can give you a number to call." Hayes laughed. "Classified? How convenient." "Oh, every faker says that." He leaned forward. "You know what I think?" I think you're one of those people who bought a uniform at a surplus store, watched a few movies, decided to play soldier. Jasmine's hands remained perfectly still on her lap. Those hands had steadied a rifle in 120-degree heat, had pulled triggers that changed the course of operations, had saved dozens of American lives. "Just call the number," she said. "I'll call whoever I want," Hayes shot back. He dialed the local recruiting office instead. Put it on speaker. "Yeah, we got someone here claiming to be a Navy SEAL, female, black, named Jasmine Torres. You ever heard of her?" The recruiter on the other end chuckled. "A female black SEAL? There's never been one. Someone's pulling your leg." Hayes ended the call with satisfaction. "You're under arrest for stolen valor, impersonation of military personnel, and lying to federal officers." The handcuffs clicked around Jasmine's wrists. She could have broken them, could have disabled both men in under 3 seconds. Instead, she sat quietly, waited because she knew what was coming. They paraded her through the courthouse, made sure everyone saw. The heroic security guards who'd caught a faker, a liar, a woman who dared claim she'd done what they could never do. The courtroom was packed when they brought her in. The judge, Harold Brennan, looked annoyed at the interruption. "What's this about?" he demanded. Hayes puffed up importantly. "Your Honor, we've arrested this woman for stolen valor. She claims to be a Navy SEAL." The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Richard Dalton, stood up. He was the type who'd gotten his position through connections rather than merit. The type who saw this as an easy win. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of stolen valor. The defendant claims to be not just military, but a Navy SEAL sniper. It's frankly insulting to real veterans." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Jasmine stood silent, dignified. Even in handcuffs, she commanded presence. "Do you have an attorney?" Judge Brennan asked her. "I don't need one," Jasmine replied. "I just need someone to make a phone call." Dalton laughed. "She probably wants to call her accomplices. Your Honor, I recommend immediate detention pending formal charges." "What unit did you supposedly serve with?" the judge asked skeptically. "SEAL Team 7, then DevGru," Jasmine answered. Gasps echoed through the room. DevGru, the elite of the elite. SEAL Team, 6's official name. Dalton's laugh was harsh. "DevGru? Your Honor, this is beyond ridiculous. No woman has ever served with DevGru. She's clearly delusional." The judge's face hardened. "Ma'am, lying to a federal judge is perjury. I'll ask you once more. Were you really a Navy SEAL?" Jasmine met his eyes steadily. "Yes, Your Honor. Lieutenant Commander Jasmine Torres, sniper and intelligence specialist, 6 tours, retired 18 months ago." The courtroom erupted, people talking, phones recording. Someone actually yelled, "Liar," from the gallery. Judge Brennan banged his gavel. "Order! Marshal, take her to holding pending investigation." But before the marshal could move, the courtroom doors burst open, not dramatically, but with purpose, with authority, the kind that made everyone turn. Admiral Marcus Thompson walked in, 6'3", steely gray hair, dress whites immaculate, 4 stars on his shoulders, the Navy Cross prominent among his ribbons. The room fell silent, absolutely silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing. Admiral Thompson's eyes swept the room once, landed on Jasmine in handcuffs. His jaw clenched. "Would someone," his voice was deadly quiet, "like to explain why one of my finest operators is in handcuffs?" Dalton sputtered. "Admiral, this woman is claiming to be—" Thompson cut him off with a look that could have frozen ocean water. "I know exactly who Lieutenant Commander Torres is. I personally pinned 3 of her medals. I signed off on her missions. I trusted her with operations that affected national security." He walked forward, each step measured, controlled, furious. "Release her. Now." Hayes fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. "We didn't know." Thompson turned on him. Didn't know. Did you check with Naval Special Warfare Command? Did you verify with SOCOM? Or did you just assume that because she's a black woman, she couldn't be who she said she was? The silence was deafening. Hayes looked at the floor. Mitchell had gone pale. Dalton was reviewing his notes as if they might save him. Lieutenant Commander Torres, the Admiral said formally, I apologize on behalf of the United States Navy for this treatment. Jasmine stood at attention despite the civilian clothes. No apology necessary, sir. Thompson turned to the judge. Your Honor, Lieutenant Commander Torres has served this country with distinction. Her full service record is classified at the highest levels. What I can tell you is that she has 13 confirmed high-value target eliminations. She's saved more American lives than anyone in this room can count. She's been wounded in action 3 times and returned to duty each time. He pulled out his phone, showed something to the judge. The judge's face went white. This is her real service record. The parts I'm allowed to show. Notice the signature at the bottom, the President of the United States. The courtroom was a tomb. Thompson continued, in Afghanistan, she held an observation post alone for 72 hours. No backup, no extraction. 37 enemy combatants tried to take that position. None succeeded. In Syria, she eliminated a target from 2,100 yards in a sandstorm. The CIA still uses that shot as a training example of impossible made possible. In Somalia, she carried a wounded Marine 4 miles through hostile territory. That Marine is now a senator. Someone in the gallery whispered, "Holy shit," loud enough for everyone to hear. Thompson wasn't done. She's fluent in 5 languages, has a master's degree in international relations from Georgetown, graduated top of her class at sniper school, first woman to complete SEAL training without any modifications to the standards, first black woman to serve with DevGru. And what did you all do? You arrested her because she didn't look like what you expected. Dalton tried to salvage something. Admiral, we had no way of knowing. Thompson's voice dropped to Arctic levels. You had no way of knowing because you didn't try to know. You saw a black woman claiming to be a SEAL, and you assumed she was lying. That's not ignorance. That's prejudice. The Admiral looked around the room, at all the people who'd watched, who'd recorded, who'd laughed. Every single person who participated in this. Security prosecution, anyone who stood by and watched. You're all going to be investigated. I'll personally ensure it. He turned back to Jasmine. Commander, what were you here for? Jury duty, sir, she replied. Several people in the gallery actually gasped. She'd been coming to serve her civic duty, to do the right thing, again, and they'd arrested her for it. Judge Brennan cleared his throat. Lieutenant Commander Torres, this court owes you an apology, a profound apology. You've served your country with honor, and we've failed you today. Jasmine nodded slightly. Your Honor, I've been in worse situations. Someone laughed nervously, then caught themselves, because they realized she meant it. She'd faced Taliban fighters, ISIS operatives, hostile forces in places most people couldn't pronounce, and she was gracious about being arrested by prejudiced security guards. The charges are dismissed, the judge announced unnecessarily, with prejudice, and I'll be referring Officers Mitchell and Hayes for federal investigation. Dalton sat down heavily. His easy case had just become a career-ending embarrassment. Mitchell and Hayes stood frozen. They'd just arrested an American hero, a highly decorated veteran, because she didn't fit their narrow idea of what a warrior looked like. Admiral Thompson addressed the room. Let me be clear. The United States military is not what you see in movies. It's not what you assume. Warriors come in every color, every gender, every background. Lieutenant Commander Torres has done things that would terrify grown men. has made shots that physics says are impossible, has saved lives in ways that will never be declassified. And she did it all while people like you doubted she even belonged in uniform. He paused. Let it sink in. The Navy will be conducting a full investigation into this incident. I expect several lawsuits will follow, and they should, because what happened here today is exactly why talented people hesitate to serve, why minorities and women face extra barriers, not from enemies, from their own countrymen. Jasmine spoke for the first time beyond answering questions. Admiral, with respect, I don't want lawsuits. I want change. I want the next woman who walks through those doors to be believed. I want the next minority veteran to be respected, not because of threats or lawsuits, but because it's right. The room was silent. Even the Admiral looked surprised. Here was someone who'd just been humiliated, arrested, paraded through a courthouse, and she was thinking about others, about the future, about change. However, Jasmine continued, her voice carrying the same authority that had once commanded operations. Officers Mitchell and Hayes should face consequences, not just for what they did to me, but for what they've probably done to others. How many veterans have they disrespected? How many have they turned away? How many have they humiliated who didn't have an admiral to walk through those doors? Mitchell finally spoke, his voice cracking. We didn't mean... Jasmine turned to him, fixed him with eyes that had watched targets through a scope from a mile away. You didn't mean to get caught. You meant every word you said, every laugh, every sneer. You enjoyed it, the power, the ability to humiliate someone you saw as beneath you. She turned to the gallery, to all the phones still recording. This is what prejudice looks like. Not burning crosses or white hoods. It looks like assumptions, like disbelief, like laughter when someone different claims excellence. It looks like Officer Mitchell, like Sergeant Hayes, like Prosecutor Dalton, like everyone who watched and said nothing. Her words hung in the air, heavy, undeniable, true. Admiral Thompson placed a hand on her shoulder. Commander, you're still the best operator I've ever known, in combat and apparently in a courtroom. A slight smile crossed Jasmine's face, the first one since she'd walked into the building. Thank you, sir. But I'm retired now, just a civilian trying to report for jury duty. The judge actually smiled. Lieutenant Commander, you're excused from jury duty. I think you've served enough for one day. Jasmine shook her head. With respect, Your Honor, I came here to serve. If you still need jurors, I'm available. Stunned silence. Then someone started clapping. One person in the gallery, then another, until the entire courtroom was applauding. The woman they'd arrested, mocked, humiliated. She still wanted to serve, still wanted to do her duty, because that's who she was, who she'd always been, whether holding a rifle in Afghanistan or sitting in a jury box in America. Mitchell and Hayes were escorted out by federal marshals. They'd face charges, lose their jobs, become the very thing they'd accused Jasmine of being, frauds. Dalton packed his briefcase with shaking hands. His career in federal prosecution was over. The video would go viral, his name forever linked with prejudice and incompetence. Admiral Thompson walked Jasmine out, through the same hallway where she'd been paraded in handcuffs. People stood aside, some saluted, even civilians, because they recognized something in her, something that transcended uniforms and medals, dignity, strength, honor. Outside, in the bright morning sun, Thompson asked, "Why didn't you call me immediately?" Jasmine shrugged. "I wanted to see how far they'd take it, how deep the prejudice went. Now we know. Now everyone knows." Thompson nodded slowly. Understanding. She'd turned her humiliation into intelligence gathering, into a teaching moment, into change. "You know this video will go everywhere. You'll be famous," he warned. Jasmine smiled slightly. Good. Maybe the next black girl who dreams of being a SEAL will see it, will know it's possible, will know that no matter what anyone says, she can be excellent. 6 months later, officers Mitchell and Hayes were convicted of violating civil rights under color of law. They received 2 years in federal prison. Dalton was disbarred. The courthouse implemented new training programs. The Navy created the Torres Protocol. And Jasmine, she went back to her quiet life, running a non-profit that trained young women in marksmanship and self-defense. Every now and then, she'd get an email from a young woman, usually a minority, saying they'd seen the video, saying they'd enlisted, saying they were trying for the SEALs, and Jasmine would smile, because that's how change really happens, not in courtrooms or congressional hearings, but in the hearts of young people who see someone like them do the impossible and think, why not me? The video has been viewed over 50 million times. Mitchell works at a car wash now. He remembers the moment he laughed at a hero. Hayes tried to write a book. No publisher would touch it. The recruiting office that laughed now has Jasmine's picture on the wall. What would you have done? Comment below. Share this story, because somewhere a young person who doesn't fit the traditional mold is dreaming of serving their country, and they need to know that heroes come in all forms.